Good evening, and welcome to another edition of African Americans Ain't Africans, the talk show that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the so called African American, Black, Negro, Shine, Savage, Coon, Monster, whatever these people want to call you and tell you who you are, and then you take their word on what they say about you. But you never can say nothing about yourself unless he tells you what to say. Tonight, we got a young brother, and y'all gonna trip. This cat is 25. 25. And I would like to get some feedback on what you think. But this is your children, 25 years old, because we always think of our kids as thugs. Yo, you all that dumb shit. This was a young brother who was brought up through that Tupac shit that so many of y'all love, and y'all start getting tattoos because Tupac had tattoos. What's up, cuz? You know that dumb shit you niggas into. You sicken me. This is a young brother who came up through that shit. Shit, it was here when he got here. This was they was wearing their pants sagging before this cat was born. They had tattoos across their chest and stuff like they was, before this cat was born. This is you about to see, and this is what I'm saying. You can call yourself whatever you want to call yourself, coon, monkey, and this brother gonna explain a something to you that's gonna blow you away. And this is what I mean. These cats who are leading us and telling us, and we will cancel a day with a cool motherfucker like me to watch these monkeys on TV. Now you're about to see what these cats are up to. I want to introduce a brother to y'all. You're gonna say this cat is only 25. And if you have some other 25s that can have a conversation with this brother, send them to this broadcast. Please. Yeah, the African American, the Black, the Negro, the colored, the Hebrew, the Christian, the Muslim, all you shines that are thinking you're something other than nature, you're really making this tough, not on us, because life is always gonna live. You can play that dead shit if you want to, and I would suggest that you keep playing it. Go over to those dead lands over there that have been mined to nothing, and now they're over here taking your shit, and you just cooning and ice skating and shining. Here's a cat that's gonna show you something. So as usual, I'm gonna shut the hell up. So we ain't even 5 minutes in. I'm gonna give it to this brother, and he's gonna tell you why the Mongol-centrics. Check out Mongol. What does Mongol mean to you guys? If you haven't studied the Mongolians, nobody told me study the words that are given to you. The Mongol-centrics and the compromising Pan-Africans. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Tyron Moon.
Hello, how are you doing, Carrie?
Cool, brother. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fine. Today I would like to coin the term. I coined the term Mongol-centrics like a couple years back. It was all because of the uproar of like trolls from the Native American community, basically hating on African Americans and Africans' information, and all of a sudden, I think it all started from like the Pan African movement trying to Africanize like the Olmec figures in Mexico because they could like white people couldn't explain the these negroid like features in antiquity of the Americas. And so they had to get like Pan African scholars like Ivan Van Sertima, Clyde Winters, David Imhotep, um, what's his name? Renoko Rashidi, or should I say Renoko Rashidi? I don't know how to pronounce his weird name, but all those Negroes were claiming like Africans came over here and built the civilization or influenced the Mexican civilization and the mound building civilization in the South.
Man, so what this brother's saying, now he's a younger cat. And so remember, he's many, I mean, he's younger than my youngest daughter. He's younger. So I'm gonna ask a question to the listeners at the end of this and tell me what you think. If our children are taught young, what could we do? Many of us think it's 50-50 to me. 50% of African Americans think it's good to know everything that they're taught in those schools. And Tyron is going to talk about that tonight. The other 50% simply don't give a shit. That 50% who don't care, man, I can watch. I'm gonna watch the game tonight. Mr. Loom will tell you what you can do in the 3 hours that you fucking waste watching a damn basketball game. And this is what I mean. People come up with terms and names and ideologies for us, and we don't question nothing. We don't ask why. We don't go like, wait a minute, or what's that Arsenio Hall used to do? And these are what's passed on to us. This is what's given to us, but we just skip over it. Arsenio Hall used to do something called things that make you go, Tyron, have you ever heard of that?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm really familiar with the Arsenio, but I might want to go into my like background to get you familiar with my work. I came from like a multicultural background. Like my relatives are like I have people that's related to me that's from like all around the globe. Like I have stepfathers that's from Pakistan. I had a like father figure when I was growing up as a toddler that was native to that was a Seminole man, and I used to date a Native American girl that was basically acting like Black Americans, but she usually was like on the same cooned out shit like other people out here are. So with that saying, when I came into this way of thinking, my parents used to tell me what our family genealogy was, and they said that we're like Indians. We're basically Muskogee. We just recently went down to like South Carolina and researched our family history, digging up like the white relatives and all our black relatives, and it say nowhere in our genealogy that we came off a slave ship. And on my father's side, his great his grandfather, my great grandfather, he's Chinese, and he married into the indigenous people over here. So and I hear rumors of like Cherokee on my father's side, but we don't know specifically what tribe that they belong to on my father's. But on my mother's side, it's somewhere in between like Yamasee or Yuchi or something like that, because they're from the Yamasee and Yuchi areas in South Carolina.
So what has this venture been like for you that you're studying all that stuff? How has it made you who you are today?
It basically cleared up everything there is to know. We don't need like all these foreign national ideologies. All we just need is just to go back into our roots. It wasn't in somewhere in Africa. They didn't drag no Africans from all the way overseas. It was just enslaving Indians on the land. It's just that simple. Like, why would you go all the way overseas when you already got millions of people over here at the ready? And plus, you have their own white people that's already slaves in their own land.
So let's just pause a minute because we want to give the people in the chat, a little time to answer that question. Could you ask the question one more time?
Like, why would white people want to steal another black race when they're already reporting that they found black people already in these lands, and you already have millions of people in America at the ready for them to use as like the workforce to put in like sweatshop work and harvesting their own natural resources, and on top of that they have their own people in Europe that's already slaves conditioned to do slave labor over here in the colonies. So why would they need other black people to do the work of the indigenous people that's familiar with their natural resources of the land?
Okay, that was a good explanation. So we're just going to take a few seconds to let people ponder and kick that around in the chat and come up, with a logical, simple answer that we can pass down to our children of what this brother just said. Because this is what we're pumped with every day. So we'll just give a couple of seconds. So, yo, man, what you do today, man?
Work. But I want to get on to another thing that I would like to ponder at. Like, they tell you stories like they replace millions of people with some other black people, but they tell you like lies like, oh, there's they all died out with a smallpox pandemic, like what we're experiencing now with the COVID-19. How can a disease wipe out entire race of people without and how can they bounce back when you got like people all the way out in the Pacific that's isolated from Europeans, never seen them, but they never died out from like colonial disease. But when it comes to America, it's something else different.
Because they tell you what they want to tell you. They can tell you a dog is now a cat. What percentage of African Americans, Negroes, whatever you want to call them, what percentage of them would you think would say, well, boss said a dog is a cat now, that's what it's going to be?
And the thing is, it's basically your master self-projecting his own self-hatred and insecurities upon you.
And brother, we don't get it. I mean,
why would like somebody lynch you? What's the reason behind a man lynching you? Why did he create miscegenation laws and telling you, oh, you better not mix with that Native American girl over there. You better not touch my white woman. Why in the fuck would he tell you that when you was minding your own fucking business in the jungle? Has anybody ever thought of that? With all these psychologists and all that, like Umar Johnson claims to be, hasn't anybody sat down and thought like, Why would this European do this to you? What's the real purpose behind that? Is he like missing something? Is he what's the term for it? Like overcompensating for something?
Well, a people who does what other people says, are they hoe? I mean, I don't. If I came to your house, the yard you just cut, and I told you to cut something else, you would tell me to fuck off because you got this. You know what I'm saying? And we let other people tell us any goddamn thing, anything.
Now, getting back to these Pan Africans and Mongol-centrics, how this whole situation started with Ivan Van Sertima and this Latino guy that's a sociologist, and he was an archaeologist, and they were like talking about Olmecs and stuff like that. This sociologist guy was named Gabriel Hapslip Vera. He wrote a whole entire book cussing out these Pan-Africans, helping these white folks Africanize these Olmec sculptures. Then flash forward a decade later, you get this clown named Salsine. He was on there trolling. He's a shield for those little Egyptologists, Arabs, and white supremacists that get online talking those "we was Kang" memes, making fun of black people and Afrocentricity, talking about Egypt and West Africa civilization and all that stuff. And so these Native American Latinos feel left out by like both these sides' ethnocentrism, that they form their own ethnocentrism but leans towards Eurocentrism, forming like an Olmectology science, claiming that they're full-blood native when they're actually mestizos. This clown named Salsine, years ago on YouTube, he got in a debate with a guy named Medjay Commander on the same topics that we're talking today about, like the Olmecs, the melanin, and the ethnicity of what the ancient Egyptians were. And he tried to push like a biracial ancient white Africa onto people while at the same time claiming to be a full-blood native Mongoloid exclusive America theory. And he couldn't back it up because he tried to falsify interview with some Afrocentric doctor named Dr. Soy Keita. He talked to him on the phone, and he recorded one of his YouTube videos about melanin, and he falsified an interview between this doctor, and that exposed Salsine for the fraud he was, and he continued to spew his rhetoric caping for Eurocentrics and Egyptology. And years later, you started seeing clowns like Lance Brown Eyes attack African Americans ain't African because of clowns like this, Salsine regurgitating racist rhetoric and trying to tell black people about their own culture and crime and all this other stuff that he uses to try and deflect from the information that's put out to challenge Eurocentrism. And so you have jokers like Lance Brown Eyes and his little trolls to attack at A4 years ago. You know how they were like harassing A4 members and go. He showed up to one of them Pan-African lectures talking about Olmecs, right? He got up out of nowhere, out of his own volition, and he shouted and acted like a fucking 2-year-old in front of these elders, minding their own fucking business, talking about something, explaining their own history over here, but the wrong way through Afrocentrism, which that paradigm isn't going to work with the indigenous paradigm over here. Scientists are saying that our genetics are older than Africans. With that man that they came out years ago with Albert Perry, his Y chromosome his haplogroup A is shared with one of those isolated Mongoloid tribes in the Brazilian jungle, the Maoruna. Both the Maoruna and the Bodo Kudo tribe and that Lusia skull that they came out with, they all have the same haplogroup and they're related to the Australoid people in Oceania. So where are they coming off saying that like all Black Americans are Africans?
Well, you know, that's that's what you just said is a reality. To not put that into the speech or to what your children are taught, yeah, I think it's criminal. I think it's criminal to tell people that they came. Now check this out, y'all. This is what I mean. You got to think. And Tyra, I don't want you to comment on something from one of the, people listening in. Come on, ships don't cross the Atlantic today. I'm talking about all that stuff. They make a beehive to America. If you look at a map, if you ask certain questions like, well, how come Florida isn't flooded with slave ship museums? How come slave ships aren't all over the place?
And speaking of which, look at my profile picture. Why aren't the Native Americans dressed in West African garb at their little ceremonies and powwows and carnivals and stuff like that? But they over here saying that your culture, your soul culture, is a melting pot of different things when it's not. Can you find a West African Michael Jackson in Africa? Can you find the equivalent of all the Motown icons in West Africa? Can you find the Motown icons amongst these Mongoloid Native Americans? Who are their equivalents to us?
Well, you Muhammad Ali, you forgot about that one. You forgot about the Mike Tyson and these American.
Oh, don't let me get started on food, weaponry, architecture, writing systems, all the shit that Pan-Africans try to claim that's over here. We can explain that shit quickly. Example, Negroes love the Yoruba Orishas, right? You got the same equivalent of deities over here that has the same powers and that Africans don't even fuck with. They even tell you that they go Christian, full-blown Christian, Muslim, or claim to be Hebrew Israelites before they go into that spookism shit. Can you find like one West African like design and like weaponry over here with the Native Americans, such as the Kapinga throwing knife? Can you find like West African swords invented by Native Americans in their own little design? Can you find Native Americans incorporating gold, like the Benfra gold jewelry them Ghanaian kings wear, since everybody claims that we all DNA cousins to Ghanaians and shit? Can you find the kente cloth in a Native American regalia? What about those Wadobe straw hats them Fulani wear, since every Negro loves to appropriate those hats and shit like that? And speaking of which, let's go into that Black is King music video movie Beyonce put out. Have you seen it, Carrie?
Nah, I'm not really into that stuff.
Oh, definitely you shouldn't watch it. It's a load of crap. Speaking of which, Africans themselves told Beyonce multiple times, South Africans included. The Khoi and the San people, their chieftain said when rumored of her playing that Sarah Bartman historical figure, saying, no, why don't that bitch go play an indigenous American woman? You're not worthy of playing Sarah Bartman. Then rewind the clock to last year when they came out with that Lion King garbage, that remake Disney put out just to pander to black people. You start seeing like this year, with John Lewis before he died, he got up there with Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi and all those Democrat shills, and kneeled right in front of the courthouse in dashikis and shit like that, showing solidarity to a porn star. What is what's his name? George Floyd? Is that man from West Africa? What about Breonna Taylor? Is she from West Africa? What about Ahmaud Arbery? Is he from West Africa? Then you got them fools. You got them fools at the National Guard singing that. What's that woman? That stage play of the Lion King, Circle of Life. Saying, look, black people vote Democrat. Stop messing up your own community and all that other shit. Look, we're showing solidarity to Africa.
Yeah, that's a major problem. Listen, I want to get to some of the people in the chat and what they say, and I want to see what you think about this, because look, y'all, all we trying to is raise the intelligence level of the so-called African American, black, Negro, nigger, color, whatever you want to call yourself. That's all we're trying to do. So the questions that you ask, we want to answer them and have you think about what you're saying, and also have us send us things that can make us think about what we're saying, so we all can be better. So this is from the Light of Life. From what I've researched, majority of slaves went to Brazil and other parts of Latin America and the Caribbean. Majority of Black Americans are not of African heritage. Tyron, what do you think of that?
I think of that as bullshit. Because do you see any of those quote unquote Zambo, Negro, Indian tribes down there talking that African shit? Do you see them preserve any West African shit down there? No, you don't see any of that shit there. You want to know how that voodoo, that Yoruba Ifa shit got there? You had a bunch of white supremacists tell them niggas to go immigrate over there to a random spot in West Africa and make that a black ethno state, and stay out of America and let white folks make America a pan-American Eurocentric white ethno state. You had W.E.B. Du Bois, you had that clown Robert Finley with his AME church. You had all those Negroes like the Cuffy's ancestor, the RZA and Flavor Flav and Old Dirty Bastard's ancestor Paul Cuffy. He was he owed a debt to the American Colonization Society to immigrate a whole bunch of black people over to Liberia. And you know what they did once they got there? They weren't there to like unify some Pan-African bullshit that Pan-Africans want you to believe. He was over there acting bougie and trying to colonize the people to prepare them to get colonized by European powers in America. Why do you think like Liberia and Sierra Leone failed?
I don't know, because NASA told it to fail. I don't know. Yo, man, this Mongol-centric, going to the title of what what you're posting. You're saying Mongol-centrics.
Mongol-centrics, yeah.
So
I coined the term Mongol-centric like a couple of years ago, because they usually used to call us Afrocentrics, trying to clump us up with them Pan-Africans. Now they stopped saying that shit and calling us Abos and Abocentric, because them Pan-Africans trying to cape for them. I call them Mongol-centrics because that's what they are. They're from Mongolia, Siberia, genetically, but they try to deny the Bering Strait argument because remember years ago on that AIM radio show that you put up on African Americans Ain't African, where that old American Indian elder was talking about the Bering Strait but backwards.
Okay, so this is how I did it. I mean, I don't, a lot of people say stuff, a lot of people put stuff out, but it's incumbent upon ourselves to, search the shit out for yourself. And I looked at the Bering Straits. And my question wouldn't it be simpler to walk across the North Pole in the snow over there and come down through Alaska and Canada? Wouldn't that be simpler? But they tell you anything.
You also got like camels. You want to know how camels got to Africa? They originate in the Americas. They crossed the Bering Strait.
So what I'm saying simply is this. What I'm saying simply is this. You are on this planet. You, the individual, because that's how you're connected to nature. The individual looks at the planet from his point of view, not what somebody else tells you. What do you say? And that's why I had this brother on now.
And the Native Americans, they're cooned out too, just like these Pan-Africans. Like they say one thing, they hear what we say and then contradict their own arguments. Like, for example, we found like the information about the Australoid being here first before them. They turn around and say, yeah, Polynesians were here, but they weren't black like you. For real, cuz they were still called niggas back in the day. And then they try and trick you with that the literacy of DNA kits, trying to claim that they're full-blood native with these haplogroups like haplogroup QX or 9-repeat allele. All those things trace back to the Eurasian steppes in Western Mongolia.
When you let other people tell you who you are, you will be what they want you to be. What you say you are. And this is what I'm trying to get African Americans Ain't Africans to see. Damn, y'all. Really? You'll let somebody else define you? That's everybody. That John Lewis who just died. That's all you monkeys letting somebody else tell you what you are. And you're supposed to be just flown to this motherfucker, picking up information and leaving it. That's what we're all here for. You're not here forever. None of us are. You're here to pick up. You're supposed to leave what you bought when you came in here. Pick up what you can while you're here, and in your way out, take the best shit that you can from here and move on. Whatever somebody tells you you are, that's what you'll be. That's what you'll be. The example that we all understand, because I know you don't understand what I'm saying, the example that we all understand is the pimp-hoe dichotomy. Ho, you are what I tell you you are. And that's what the Negro is, the African American, the black man. That's what you are, what somebody else tells you are, because you don't define yourself. Punk motherfuckers. But anyway, go on, Tyrone. The Mongol-centrics. So with that,
the Native Americans, they can't tell you about slavery. They can't tell you like the first narrative of when they first met an alleged African that came off that ship. They can't tell you where the litter went. They can't tell you like the bywords that they use for alleged black people, like using certain little things like unega or something like that. That means black or something in their language, but it's It's something recent that white people train them to do. You know how white people like to claim honorary Aryans, like they fetishize them Asians and stuff like that. Them niggas can't tell you nothing about like what happened in about they people being the proto slaves before any alleged Africans came over.
I mean, so please, if you guys can,
And
you
you
know,
got
this
shines, bro. You got shines in these reservations that's federally recognized, and they sit over here and advocate for them and say that we're a mix of white people, them, and Africans when they can't even prove that shit. I asked them, where's this West African shit that was preserved amongst them? Where are the Zambos or the Native Americans with high West African genetic markers in their family groups? Can they name the people that preserve the West African languages amongst their people? Did they like make a hybridization language, polyglot language? Like, come on, shouldn't we all be polyglots in several West African languages plus Native American languages? Not just European shit. Simple shit like this.
listen, y'all. You hear this? You hear this, young man? Listen. Find your people. Find out who your people were. Find out who you came through. That'll tell you a lot about yourself. You can't be what somebody else tells you you are, because they might want to tell you to keep that energy for themselves. And remember, everything the African American does is to make sure his daddy get paid. Especially that's what the African American doesn't produce anything for themselves. They don't take the land that they're from and produce from it and make them tradable across the world. They don't do that. They fall into ideology like Hebrew, African, Christian.
Oh, speaking of that, only in recent times you're starting to see Native Americans convert to Islam and Judaism. Historically, they did not convert to no Islam via Africans being introduced to them and them allegedly being slaves of these natives. They did not, like, the only person that you could count on allegedly learning amongst Africans is a Cherokee man that went to Africa because of the colonization society told them niggas to like immigrate and make a black ethno state over there. He's a Cherokee man by the name of Austin Curtis, is said to like mixed in with the Vai people over there in West Africa and help them form their own syllabary with the Vai language. Now, if that's so, because this is coming from Henry Louis Gates sources, why didn't Native Americans adopt these languages and scripts and writing systems and books and stuff like that that we're told about Mali and Timbuktu, West Africa being the pinnacle of learning centers and shit like that? Why didn't the Native Americans adopt it? Why didn't the Native Americans form like their own houses, like those mud castles and mosques and shit that you see in West Africa, like the city of Songhai or the Nak or the Niri or the Wagado Mende and Loango Zaire cities? How come the Native American ain't formed cities like this in the South or the Caribbean?
So you see what this brother is putting forth is, this is why we don't really get it in school. This is why a lot of young brothers, they're not really with the school thing, because the shit that they say, brothers know that ain't right. And we haven't picked it up yet. So in this time of this pandemic, isn't it a cold opportunity now for us to come up with our own education system? I mean, really, the education in America sucks to the highest levels, and we can't produce nothing for ourselves that can take us to another level.
The media sucks too. We ain't got our own movies. We ain't got our own video games. We ain't got our own books. We ain't got nothing but just hyping up Africa and Hebrews and Moors and all this other garbage.
So when you talk about the Pan Africans, let me ask you what you think about this. There's a big debate going on whether Africans should play Americans, like in a new film coming out or whatever.
Oh, you talking about that movie with Daniel Kaluuya playing our hero Fred Hampton, or that Cynthia Eriva heifer playing Aretha Franklin, and what's her, Harriet Tubman?
What?
Those Negroes, those shines.
Okay. But the argument is Negroes have played Nelson Mandela, whoever, Patrice. No, I don't think. I don't think Africans will go for that. Patrice Lumumba was too cold. But some of these African Americans actors have played African people. What do you think about that argument?
White people and Jewish people don't care if about casting. They just see a black face and assume that we all the same when we're not.
So you don't. So what do you think that does to the so-called the African American who looks at Pan Africanism like it's a religion?
It wipes you the fuck out and also homogeneously clumps you with people that you aren't even acquainted with, that ain't even on the same page as you.
So what are some of the other Pan-African ideologies that are creeping through the community and through the ideologies of the indigenous people here in America, the indigenous people here of America? What other ideologies are being used to snuff us out?
Egyptology. You got the Circle 7. You got the Nation of Islam. Those Negroes sold out to the Freemasons. They coddled their ancestors coddled the Greco-Romans. Their ancestors coddled the European Ashkenazi Jews. Their ancestors coddled the medieval Europeans.
Okay. Now, so when you say that, I don't want you to leave it open like you're just saying something and not backing it up like most people do. Explain.
Yeah.
Explain what you said by that. What you mean by that?
You know how Africans act towards foreigners better than they treat their own people that's indigenous to their own land?
Check.
There you go. They're wiped out. They're dying off. Their people are going right back into slavery today because they ain't on the same shit that American Indian Negroes are on.
Right. How long did it take?
Africans does not lead the way in the civil rights or human rights. It's that simple.
So this is, I have my own answers for it, but my answers, people get mad and offended. What do you see? What do you see? How we're not seeing this, dude?
We got a lot of work to do.
So here's LL Lewis is asking the question, exactly, sources, please. So
I can show you sources.
Well,
you see these Pan-Africans. Wait. You see, didn't Kwame Nkrumah come to the U.S.? Wasn't he friends with John Henry Clark? When John Henry Clark went to West Africa in like solidarity to West Africans, and he's talking about like nation building and combining economics and shit like that as our solution. What came out of that?
Crickets.
I'm like, he's saying years later, in his old age, he said we should be able to build cars. We should be able to have our own like malls and our own like businesses and economics and stuff. But what did he do to his own relatives when they named him? He changed his name to Henrik after a Scandinavian author. He had like sharecropping Muskogee heritage in the South, and their people were sharecroppers. He ain't want to do that. He was too busy being distracted with that Tarzan and the apes propaganda. We was Kang shit. White folks was distracting him with instead of being an Indian. He wanted to be a motherfucking African. That's what he wanted to be. He ain't want to be an Indian. He ain't want to defend the land over here. He ain't want to he didn't want to pay attention to the resources that's plentiful over here that Africans trying to get over here. But you distracted with gold and lithium and all that shit outside yourself. Bro, you don't even know your own animals.
Hey, let me jump in real quick, Tyron.
Oh my God.
LL Lewis, exactly. Please, brother, it's the information's out there. All y'all asking where you get this stuff, all you gotta do is look it up. Or I will say do better than that. Think about it. Damn, think. You know, is what this cat's saying. This cat, I mean, all you gotta do is look up when John Henry Clark and all these cats went to school. Bam, a generation later, who came out after that? The people who went to college in the '60s for the civil rights movement. That education thing that went on back there. Those are the people who got that you are Black and African. Or you have to look. You have to ask questions. You just can't come have somebody come tell you this is what it is, because that's what it ain't. You got to figure it out. You can't ask people. You got to figure it out. That's what you're here for, to learn.
Let me add on to that. Like Mongol-centrics and Pan-Africans with the you know how we came out with the evidence against these pan.
Listen, so LL Lewis, exactly sources, please. Brother, it's all in, it's right at your fingertips. This is in your face. All you got to do is open your eyes. You can see it. You seeing all this stuff with all these people that been trafficking these children and stuff. This story is 40 years in the making. What you mean you don't know? So that's what I'm saying, dude. The information is there. You just ain't looking at it. You looking at for somebody to bring you something that they ain't gonna bring you. You gotta get it yourself. Amen. Tyron, I'm sorry, man. Go ahead.
What I was saying, remember when we put out all that information about Pan-Africans being taught by European Jews?
Yes.
Yes. Their counter argument is by saying like, oh, y'all using white sources too. Y'all use Leo Wiener and Alexander von Witherall and all these white folks that talking about the black omics and stuff like that. And Rafinsky saying that the Bering Strait and he meant black people were already over here. Oh, y'all using white sources too. Blah 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 blah. And what that got to do with us being indigenous? What Jew taught us that we were Indian when we were at the time prisoners of war?
May I retort?
Yes.
So look, man, being that we don't study our folks and being that we're comfortable with the ideology of, I didn't know. Indigenous is just a word. It can be individual. It can mean independent. It's a word that's closer to what you are. I know you don't get it. Nobody told you. That ain't what nobody told me. I understand. Indigenous people, we're just saying from the land. Every land produces people. And even if you want to use that, well, what's that? Where all the planets were stuck together,
Pangea.
yeah, even if you want to use that model, okay, so when the planets finally broke up, the people who are on each planet, on each land mass, what did they do? The people who broke off on the island, they know that island more than the people who are in America, who are in Australia. We don't question nothing. We don't, anybody can tell us anything, anything. And we'll jump on and be like, oh, okay, yeah. That's how the African American gets down. Anybody who says that's not true, what's up? I mean, we can talk about it now. The so-called black man, African American, indigenous person, they do what other people tell them to do, right or wrong.
Right.
And I'm not talking about 100%, because there's about 10% of us who be like, you niggas suck. Most Negro, I'll tell you what, this is how you know. There's an interview with Ice Cube. He's with Roland Martin. And Roland Martin is the kind of cat, he has been pushing white supremacy his whole life. Look at him. Look at him. And he's doing an interview with Ice Cube, and he's caping for the Native American. And Ice Cube goes, well, we are the Native Americans. We've been here first. Now, why that's important? Because Ice Cube said earlier, hey, that ain't us. He changed, he learned. He got some new information. He spoke to his relatives. He realized that, nah, that ain't us. Go check out that interview, y'all. And I want you to pay attention to Roland Martin. Look how he looks compared to Ice Cube, and they're around the same age. Ice Cube could pass for Roland Martin's son. Why? Because these Negroes have been caping for white supremacy. They hold that's their purpose in life. Now, they're no longer needed. Study who you are and where you come from. All that other dumb shit that you know, it really doesn't help.
I'm going to add on to that, what you were saying about the Pangea thing. Like, Pan-Africans love to talk that out of Africa stuff, but always deflect from the Australoid people just because they look at the hair and say, oh, they ain't us. They must be part Neanderthal or some shit. Who told you that? Like, Mongol-centrics like to use the talking point like they're full-blood native, and they like to trot out like people in the isolated Brazilian jungle that's just brown mongoloids and say, oh, we're you melanated, see, that means that we are our own race. No, when you look at Asia or places like Europe, they got olive-skinned Europeans, they got brown mongoloids in Siberia, all that. They still don't predate the Negritos. They don't predate the Sentinelese up there in the Nicobar and Andaman Islands. That's darker than Africans, by the way. And their genetics are probably older than Africans because, what's his name? Safa Karu came out with a video saying that Africans say that in West Africa, like the Senegal, what's them, the Lebo, they say that they're from India. The Mandinka of Cabo say that they're from Yemen, and the Chaminuga Shona of Zimbabwe say they're from Persia. So how is there an out of Africa theory, and what that got to do with quote unquote the term Bantu coined by Wilhelm Bleek? What did those people got to do with the out of Africa theory when it's about some man troglodytes evolving to a Caucasian man? And then they tell you things like mitochondrial Eve. Y'all mitochondrial Eve is an ape woman, Australopithecus, meaning southern ape in the scientific term. That's your mitochondrial mother. How are you an ape? Simple things. And then real science, like updated science, um, with the Y chromosome, they updated it and said that a black American genetics, Y chromosome genetics from South Carolina is older than anybody in West Africa, but they tried and diverge from that and claim that he was from Cameroon or something when West African genetics are L1, L2, L3, L4, L5, when haplogroup A isn't even in West Africa. It's in like South America and North America.
Yo, man, see all that bullshit. See, that's the throw you off. L1, 2,
Yeah, that's statistical noise.
right.
They try and get you with that James Watson DNA garbage when it has nothing to do with phenotype. It can't tell you a nuclear. There's no nucleotide to tell you what race you are. They can't even go back and tell you what your ancestor was or where they were living. They can only go to recent relatives.
Well,
And
Mr.
these Negroes hold on to that damn DNA crap, and so do the Mongol-centrics, and they all cape for you. These Eurocentric Egyptologists regurgitating that shit, trying to claim that white people are indigenous and original aboriginals to Africa, Americas, New Zealand, Hawaii, all that shit. That when they use those dog whistles, claiming white countries for everybody, black countries for Africa, and yellow countries for Asia, those little goofy ass dog whistles that don't make sense, that they try and sneak in the census saying that Mongoloids are original inhabitants of Asia, Native Americans original inhabitants of North America, white people are original inhabitants of Africa, Europe, and America, or some shit like that. And then they get to you and say that you invasive foreign national species to Africa itself. You're native to nowhere else. That's what black and African American actually means. But you don't look at the definitions. Negroes just see the modern shit that they put in the book, but they don't dive deep into the thesaurus or etymology book and look at what these words actually mean, because your oppressor double speaks and hides shit that they don't want you to know about.
Well, listen, brother. Listen, we almost out of time. You got to come back. Can we come back this weekend? I mean,
Yes,
tomorrow?
sir.
Okay, listen.
Yeah.
We're going to pick this up tomorrow, y'all. But check this out. This is your children. This is your children. Not everybody's into the streets and all that other dumb shit. Some people are really thinking and questioning what's going on. And these are your children. I would suggest you start giving them answers instead of all that Jesus and all that other bullshit that don't work. Start giving your children information that's going to help them maintain themselves on this planet, because obviously many of you don't. Let's just be honest. So I want to thank you guys for joining us tonight. Find your people. Understand the reason that you're here and get busy. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
All right. Bye.